I bought plane tickets for the entire family, but at the airport, my daughter-in-law announced, "We gave your ticket to my mama. The grandkids love her more." My son agreed. I nodded silently and walked away, and a minute later, I did something that made them beg me to cancel their trip. Friends, before we dive into this story, I have a small request. If you appreciate true life stories and justice, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. And write in the comments which city you are listening from. I am always interested to know how far my words travel. Happy listening. Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport was buzzing like a disturbed beehive. This sound always had a dual effect on me. On one hand, the anticipation of flight. On the other, a light, barely perceptible anxiety common to people of my age who are used to controlling every little detail. I stood slightly away from the check-in counter, clutching a leather folder with documents to my chest. Inside lay 5 passports and printouts that had cost me half a year's profit from my modest investments. The Maldives, Azure Bay, not just a hotel, but a private, closed club resort. I had been planning this for 6 months. Officially, it was a gift to my grandchildren for the holidays. Unofficially, it was my jubilee. 65 years old, I didn't want feasts, toasts, and the fake smiles of distant relatives. I wanted the ocean, silence, and my family beside me. I paid for everything: business class flights, the seaplane transfer, an overwater villa with a private pool. I wanted Sterling, my son, to feel like a king, and his wife, Valencia, to finally stop complaining about being tired. But now, standing under the cold light of the terminal, I felt the air around us turn heavy, like before a thunderstorm. Sterling stood a few yards away from me, buried in his phone. He shifted nervously from foot to foot, constantly adjusting the collar of his shirt. He was avoiding my gaze. Since the morning, when the Uber Black arrived to pick us up, he had been silent. I wrote it off as travel stress. Men often get nervous before flights, even if they don't admit it. Valencia, however, was behaving differently. She was whispering. She stood next to her mother, Odessa, speaking to her quickly and heatedly, covering her mouth with her hand. Odessa, my son's mother-in-law, a loud, flashy woman who loved leopard prints and gold bangles that jingled with her every movement. Her presence here was a mystery to me. I hadn't invited her. My budget was for 5 people. Me, Sterling, Valencia, and the 2 grandkids, the twins. When Odessa appeared at the terminal entrance with a massive rolling suitcase, I assumed she had just come to see her babies off. That was her style. Create a fuss, cry a little for the road, give a pile of unsolicited advice. But the suitcase was too big for someone just saying goodbye, and hanging on it was a priority tag. Ms. Eulalia Vaughn. Valencia's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. She was smiling, but her eyes remained cold and calculating. She was wearing an expensive cream-colored suit, the very one I suspected that had cost a chunk of the money I transferred to Sterling for business development. "It's time. Check-in is already open." We moved toward the counter. The grandkids, 7-year-old Cairo and Zuri, were running around the suitcases, oblivious to the tension among the adults. I felt a cold knot growing in my chest. My intuition, honed by years of working as a chief financial officer, was screaming, "The deal is dirty. Audit the assets." But I brushed it off. This was family. My son, my blood. The young woman at the counter, impeccably polite in her airline uniform, looked up at us. "Good afternoon. Your passports, please?" I took a step forward, intending to pull the documents from my folder, but Valencia was faster. She deftly wedged herself between me and the counter, as if accidentally pushing me aside with her shoulder. "Here you go," she sang out, laying a stack of passports on the counter. I froze. I saw only 4 navy blue booklets. My passport remained in my folder. The 5th document, which Valencia handed to the employee with a triumphant smile, was Odessa's passport. "Valencia," I said quietly. My voice didn't tremble, but inside, everything collapsed. "You made a mistake. That is your mother's passport. I have mine." Valencia turned to me slowly. Her face adopted an expression of mournful sympathy, the kind used when announcing the death of a distant relative whose inheritance has already been eyed. "Oh, Miss Eulalia, Ma." She addressed me the way she only did when she needed something. We talked it over. Basically, we decided it would be better if Odessa came along. The terminal was noisy. They were announcing boarding for a flight to Dubai. Someone laughed. A child cried. But for me, a vacuum of silence descended. "What do you mean better?" I asked, looking not at her, but at my son. Sterling was still looking at the floor, studying the toes of his expensive loafers. "But surely you understand?" Valencia lowered her voice, pretending to care about my reputation. "The flight is long, 14 hours. Your blood pressure. Last month you complained about a migraine, and over there it's the heat, the humidity. Doctors really don't recommend drastic climate changes at your age." "My blood pressure is normal," I stated clearly, "and this is my birthday." "Exactly!" Odessa chimed in, entering the conversation. She adjusted the massive necklace on her neck. "Laylee, honey, why do you need this stress? You'll rest at home, in the quiet, watch your shows, and I'll help with the grandkids. You know, they've gotten so used to me lately. Cairo said just yesterday, 'I want Grandma Dessa to go.'" She was lying. I saw it in the shifting eyes of the twins, who had gone quiet, sensing the conflict. "Sterling." I spoke his name like a final argument, like a demand. My son finally raised his head. In his eyes, I saw what I had feared seeing all my life: cowardice. He was my creation, my project, into which I had poured everything, but somewhere I had made a fatal mistake. He wasn't a man. He was an appendage to his wife's ambitions. "Ma, come on," he mumbled, shrugging his shoulders. "Val is right. It'll be hard on you and Odessa. She's more energetic, and the kids have more fun with her. Don't be offended, okay? We'll bring you a souvenir. It's just going to be better for everyone this way. For everyone." I looked at them. At Valencia, barely suppressing a triumphant smirk. At Odessa, already mentally trying on a swimsuit at my villa. At Sterling, who betrayed me for peace in the bedroom. They had planned it all. They knew I would pay for the tickets. They knew I wouldn't make a scene in a public place. They counted on my upbringing, on my pride, on my habit of swallowing insults silently so as not to air dirty laundry. They thought I was just a wallet with the function of a grandmother. I exhaled slowly. The anger that might have made another woman scream and stomp her feet transformed within me into an icy clarity. It was the same feeling I experienced before shutting down an unprofitable branch. Pity vanished, only accounting remained. "I understand," I said calmly, so calmly that Valencia even blinked in surprise. I opened the folder and took out the printouts: hotel reservations, transfers, insurance, the entire package of documents without which their trip would just be a walk around the airport. "Here are the vouchers." I placed the papers on the counter next to Odessa's passport. "Since you've decided everything, I won't get in the way." "You're a miracle, Ma." Sterling exhaled with relief and even leaned in to peck me on the cheek, but I took a barely noticeable step back. "Have a good flight," I said. I turned and walked toward the exit. I heard Valencia giggle behind my back. "See, I told you. She'd understand everything. Old folks need their rest." I walked through the crowd. My back was straight as a guitar string. The glass doors parted before me, letting in the cool Atlanta air. I didn't call an Uber. Instead, I took out my phone. In my contacts, I found a number I hadn't used in about 3 years. "Mr. Abernathy, personal banker." Call. "Ms. Vaughn?" A surprised, slightly raspy male voice answered. "Didn't expect this. Glad to hear from you." "Hello, Julian," I said, watching another airliner take off into the sky above ATL. "Do you remember we discussed the golden parachute protocol in case I decided to abruptly change the family asset management strategy?" "Of course I remember, but you said that was an extreme measure." "The time has come, Julian. Initiate the protocol." "Yes, immediately." They are going through passport control right now." I ended the call and smiled for the first time in that hour. Truly smiled. I didn't go home. Instead, I went up to the second floor of the terminal, to that bar with panoramic windows where business people usually kill time before long trips. I took a table right by the glass. From here, the airfield was in full view, a huge mechanism gridlocked with lights where every screw knew its place. Unlike my family. "Double Hennessy," I told the waiter who approached. He glanced briefly at my severe gray coat, nodded, and vanished. I watched as the huge jet, carrying my son, my daughter-in-law, and her triumphant mother, slowly taxied to the runway. They were probably already unfastening their belts, anticipating champagne. Sterling most likely stretched his legs into the aisle. He always did that, believing rules were written for economy class. The waiter placed the snifter before me. The amber liquid swayed, catching the glint of the airfield lights. I took a sip. The warmth spread through my chest, but didn't melt the ice crystal that had formed there half an hour ago. I took out my phone. The screen lit up, reflecting in the glass. The Private Capital app loaded instantly, greeting me with a black minimalist interface. For years, I lied to myself. I called it support, a startup, help for a young family. I let Sterling think his consulting firm was a successful business. But the only client of that firm, in essence, was me. I ran fictitious consultations through his accounts, paid for non-existent reports, just so he would feel like a man, a provider. His platinum card was linked to my main account. He never saw the real bills for the apartment, for the grandkids' private school, for the lease on his black SUV. I wasn't a mother. I was an ATM with a heartbeat. And today, this ATM decided to close for maintenance. My finger hovered over the Family Access Management icon. 2 names were listed there, Sterling Vaughn and Valencia Vaughn. The limits were set to unlimited. I chuckled. What irony. Boundless love converted into unlimited credit, and they decided it would always be this way. I pressed Edit. Field. Credit limit. I erased the infinity symbol and entered a single digit, 0. Then I went to the current transaction section. There it was, the largest sum for today, $25,000. Resort prepayment. The payment went through 2 hours ago as a gift to family. In banking terminology, this meant I was voluntarily covering the expenses of third parties. I pressed the Dispute Transaction button. In the drop-down menu of reasons, I selected Unauthorized Overdraft, Expense Classification Error. The system issued a warning. Attention! Changing the category will result in the immediate revocation of the bank's guarantee obligations to the merchant. The amount will be billed to the additional cardholder as a personal debt. Are you sure? I looked out the window. The plane lifted off the ground, carrying them to the paradise they had stolen. Yes, I said aloud and pressed Confirm. The screen blinked green. Changes accepted. Link to additional cards severed. I knew what would happen next. I could see it as clearly as if I were sitting in the adjacent seat. Somewhere up there at 30,000 feet, a flight attendant in a red uniform with a practiced smile was rolling a cart with drinks. In business class, alcohol is included in the price, but Sterling always loved ordering something special that wasn't on the menu, just to show off. "A bottle of Cristal, please," he probably said, casually extending that platinum card. Valencia was likely already taking a selfie with a glass, and Odessa was loudly admiring the service, glancing at the neighbors. The flight attendant inserted the card into the terminal. A second of waiting. Sterling smiled, anticipating the first sip of freedom from maternal supervision. The terminal would have beeped, short and nasty. Red indicator. "I apologize, sir." The flight attendant's voice became a bit drier. "Transaction declined. The terminal writes, card confiscated. Lost." "That's nonsense." Sterling must have laughed, waving it off casually. "The chip got demagnetized. Try again. Or enter it manually. It's unlimited." She tried again. Same result. "Sir, the bank is blocking the transaction. We need another form of payment." The smile slid off Sterling's face. He probably frowned, feeling the other passengers starting to look at him. He reached into his wallet, pulled out the second card, the reserve one I gave Valencia for household expenses. "Try this one." The flight attendant took the plastic. Waiting again. Beep again. Decline. "Sir, insufficient funds." "This is a bank error." Sterling's voice cracked into a squeak. "I'm going to complain. I have millions in there." "Unfortunately, sir, I cannot provide you with the service." The flight attendant took the bottle back onto the cart. "And I will have to ask you to pay for the already opened snacks in cash. Otherwise, upon arrival, the police will meet us." I finished the cognac in one gulp, feeling the harshness of the alcohol finally match the harshness of my intentions. The plane turned into a small dot in the sky. Their flight had only just begun, and they were already falling. I paid for the cognac in cash, leaving a generous tip, and headed for the airport exit. My phone was silent. There was no signal on the plane, giving me a few more hours of blissful silence. I got into my car, which I had left in long-term parking, and drove slowly toward the city. The interior smelled of leather and my perfume, but I sensed the phantom smell of tropical humidity and salt. I knew what was happening on the other side of the world, at Valana International Airport in Malé. They landed. Sterling, Valencia, the kids, and Odessa stepped out of the cool cabin into the stifling, enveloping heat of the Maldives. After the incident with the cards on board, their mood was likely spoiled, but not destroyed. Sterling, the master of self-deception, convinced himself and his wife that it was just a technical glitch, some error in the bank's security system that I would, of course, fix as soon as I saw the missed calls. They went through passport control and headed to the transfer desk for the Azure Bay Hotel. Usually, guests of this level are met with iced towels soaked in lemongrass and fresh coconuts. The captain of the private boat in a snow-white uniform should have personally taken their luggage. But this time, the captain stood with his arms crossed over his chest, looking not at them, but at his tablet. "Mr. Vaughn?" he asked, not even trying to fake a welcoming smile. "Yes, that's us." Valencia tried to slip forward, adjusting her wide-brimmed hat. "We had a terrible misunderstanding on the plane, but we are so glad to finally—" "Your reservation is canceled," the captain interrupted her, not looking up. A pause hung in the air. The noise of arriving tourists, the lapping of water against the pier, everything suddenly became deafeningly loud. "What do you mean canceled?" Sterling tried to give his voice authority, but it came out pathetic. "Do you know who my mother is? Eulalia Vaughn. The owner of the primary account, Madame Eulalia, revoked the authorization 40 minutes ago." The captain finally looked at them. In his gaze, one could read the weariness of a man who had seen too many rich loafers whose credit cards suddenly turned into pumpkins. "I cannot take you on board. The boat is only for guests with a confirmed reservation." Valencia flushed. Her face went splotchy red, contrasting with her white linen dress. "You have no right," she shrieked, attracting the attention of the line. "I will sue! This is arbitrary! We are with children! You are obligated to take us!" "I am obligated to follow the bank and hotel instructions, ma'am," the captain cut her off. He turned to the next group of tourists, smiled at them in a way he hadn't smiled at Sterling a minute ago, and gestured for them to board. "Please, welcome to paradise." Odessa, who until this moment had been silently fanning herself, suddenly groaned. "Oh, I feel faint. Val, do something. My heart is going to stop. And where is this damn boat? I'm not going to stand here in the heat." Sterling was frantically poking at his phone screen. "Mama isn't picking up," he hissed in panic. "It's ringing, but she's not answering." "She's doing it on purpose." Valencia angrily kicked her suitcase. "The old witch just decided to play on our nerves. She's offended that we didn't take her." "Whatever. She'll pout for a bit and turn the money back on. She'll get bored without us in an hour." Sterling wiped sweat from his forehead. "Okay, stay calm. It's just a glitch or her whim. We'll get to the hotel ourselves and sort everything out at the reception. The manager knows me." He looked around, searching for an alternative. The luxurious speedboats of other hotels were departing one after another, whisking away happy tourists. For them, only one option remained. "Over there." Sterling pointed to a shabby pier off to the side, where locals and backpackers were crowded. "Water taxi." This wasn't a high-speed boat with air conditioning and champagne. It was an old ferry smelling of diesel and fish. Wooden benches, peeling paint, and cramped quarters. "I am not sitting in that," Odessa declared, scrunching her nose in disgust. "We have no choice, Mama," Valencia barked at her. "Get in or stay at the airport." They loaded onto the ferry under the scorching sun. Valencia broke a nail trying to drag her mother's heavy suitcase on board because porters weren't provided here. The grandkids whined, demanding water and a bathroom. Sterling sat squeezed onto a hard bench, praying that no one he knew would see him in this tub. An hour and a half of shaking over the waves. Sprays of salt water flew into their faces, ruining Valencia's blowout and Odessa's makeup. When the ferry finally docked at the technical pier of Azure Bay, far from the grand entrance, they looked like shipwreck survivors. They were met not by a welcoming committee with drums, but by the hotel manager, Mr. Rashid. He held a folder, and his demeanor was strictly business. "Mr. Vaughn," he nodded dryly, "we didn't expect you on this flight, but since you've arrived—" "Rashid!" Sterling rushed to him like a lifeline. "Thank God! There's some monstrous mistake with the bank. Mama mixed something up. Give us the keys to the villa. We'll check in, shower, and then I'll settle everything with the payment." Rashid didn't even move. He opened the folder and took out a sheet of paper. "I'm afraid that is impossible, sir. Since the corporate club member, Miss Eulalia Vaughn, is not personally present at check-in, the conditions of your reservation are void. The friends and family discount is no longer valid." "What?" Valencia froze. "What difference does it make if she's here or not?" "A huge difference, madam. It is a condition of the contract. Without her, you are regular guests off the street, and considering the high season—" Rashid paused as if savoring the moment. "The accommodation cost has been recalculated at the current rate. That is $3,000 a night. Payment up front for the entire stay." "3,000?" Odessa's eyes popped out. "That's robbery." "And one more thing," Rashid added, ignoring Odessa's wails. "Your overwater villa has already been given to other guests who made a prepayment. We have only 2 standard rooms left with a view of the garden, next to the generator." Sterling went pale. He stood on the pier in a shirt soaked with sweat, listening to the hum of the generator in the distance, and for the first time, it seemed, began to understand that this whim of his mother's might cost him much more than just a spoiled mood. "But we don't have that kind of money with us," he whispered. Rashid smiled politely but coldly. "Then I can suggest you wait for the return ferry. It will be tomorrow morning." At that moment, I was parking my car at my home in Buckhead. The silence of the suburban evening was exactly the medicine I needed. I knew the phone in my purse was about to start exploding with messages, but I wasn't in a hurry to take it out. First, mint tea and repotting the ficus. It had been cramped in the old pot for a long time, just like me. I entered my empty house, kicked off my heels, and felt the hardwood floor cool my feet. It was a pleasant sensation, the feeling of a home that now belonged only to me. No childish screams, no complaints from Valencia, no TV eternally turned on by Sterling. I went into the kitchen, put the kettle on, and took out a bag of soil. The ficus in the corner of the living room truly looked depressing. Roots were already protruding, demanding freedom. While the kettle was boiling, I took the phone out of my bag. The screen lit up, illuminating the semi-darkness of the kitchen. 37 missed calls, 12 voicemails, and an endless string of texts in the messenger. I opened the chat with Valencia. The messages flowed in a continuous stream of hysteria, all caps with a bunch of exclamation marks. "Mama, what are you doing? They won't check us in. They want $40,000 deposit. We don't have that money on the cards. You blocked everything. The kids are crying. Mama, you are torturing the grandkids. Pick up the phone immediately. Odessa is having a heart attack. I chuckled. A heart attack hadn't stopped Odessa from demanding the business lounge an hour ago. I took a sip of tea, then opened the photo gallery on my phone, found the photo of the contract I signed 6 months ago when buying the tour. That specific clause in fine print on the 3rd page. I took a screenshot, circled the phrase non-refundable and non-transferable in red marker, and sent it to Valencia, followed by a short message. Sweetie, the ticket was in my name. You decided to use it differently. Now you manage your vacation yourselves. Have a pleasant evening, sweetie. I put the phone down, but not to calm down. I was just getting started. The ficus would wait. Now I needed to uproot larger weeds. I sat at my laptop. I knew the password to the family cloud by heart, although Valencia was sure I didn't even know how to use it. To them, I was a grandmother with a flip phone soul, even though I was the one who set up their entire home network. In the Documents folder, I found what I was looking for. Scanned copies of property deeds, an office in Midtown Atlanta, 1,200 square feet. A prestigious business center, panoramic windows, oak furniture. Sterling called it the headquarters of his consulting empire. He loved bringing friends there, treating them to whiskey and discoursing on market trends. But in the owner column stood my name, Eulalia Vaughn. I bought this office 5 years ago. When Sterling decided to start his business, I put it in my name, telling my son, let this be your insurance, but legally it's safer this way. He didn't even argue then. He was too busy choosing a leather director's chair. Next to it lay the scan of the title to his black Escalade, also mine. I opened my email. A letter to my attorney was already sitting in drafts. I attached the documents and pressed send. The text was short and dry. Dear Mr. Roberts, please prepare documents for the transfer of ownership of the property at address and the vehicle to Real Estate LLC for subsequent urgent liquidation. You have the power of attorney for the sale. Act immediately. Eulalia. This wasn't just a blow to the wallet. It was a blow to Sterling's identity. Without the office, he was nobody. Without the car, he was a pedestrian. His entire life was a decoration built on my foundation. And I had just pulled out that foundation. I picked up the phone and typed a message to my son. Sterling, I've been thinking. At my age, one needs to simplify life, get rid of excess ballast. I decided to sell the office. Since you are such a successful businessman, you can surely rent something suitable yourself or work from home. You have 24 hours to move your personal belongings. Then the locks will be changed. Eulalia. Send. And now let's transport 6,000 miles south. Sterling stood in the hotel lobby, trying to catch a weak signal from the local Wi-Fi. Chaos reigned around him. Valencia was screaming at Rashid, demanding to speak to upper management. Odessa sat on a suitcase, fanning herself with a brochure, loudly proclaiming that such a mess never happens in Jamaica. The children, tired and hungry, were tugging at their father's pant leg. Daddy, we want to eat. Daddy, when are we going to the pool? Sterling swatted them away like annoying flies. His phone beeped. He opened the message, read it. His face, already pale from stress, turned gray, earthy. What is it? Valencia, noticing the change in his face, stopped mid-sentence. She transferred the money? Sterling looked up at her. In his eyes was not just fear. There was the panic of a man who suddenly realized he is standing on the edge of a precipice with no parachute on his back. The office, he wheezed. She's selling the office. What office? Valencia didn't understand. Your office? It's not mine, Valencia, suddenly he screamed, breaking into a squeal. It never was mine. She put everything in her name. And the car, too. She writes that she is selling it all to realtors right now. Are you an idiot? Valencia snatched the phone from him. How could you let her put everything in her name? You said you were the owner. I thought it was a formality. She's my mother. Mother? Valencia threw the phone at his chest. Your mother is a monster. She is destroying us. Do you realize that without the office, they won't give you that loan for expansion? You have the office as collateral for the new project. Sterling grabbed his head and slid down the wall to the floor, right onto the marble tiles of the lobby. If she sells the office, the bank will demand early repayment of the loan. And he gulped. I have a cash gap there. They'll declare me bankrupt. Odessa, hearing the word bankrupt, stopped fanning herself. So, she said, getting up from the suitcase. Her voice suddenly became hard and businesslike, without any baby talk. That means there is no money, and there won't be any. Mama, wait! Valencia rushed to her husband. Call her. Call and beg. Say anything. Get on your knees. Record a video. Let her stop the sale. Sterling pressed the call button with trembling fingers. The rings were long, drawn out. I looked at the screen of my phone lying on the kitchen table. The name Son blinked on the display. I sipped my tea. It was delicious. Earl Grey. I didn't answer. Let him suffer. Let him realize. The lesson had only just begun. The phone fell silent, but only for a second, to explode with a new trill. I looked at the screen, feeling something inside me finally turn to stone. Valencia called, then Sterling again, then an unknown number, evidently Odessa. I turned off the sound, flipped the phone screen down, and returned to repotting the ficus. Hands in the earth, the smell of dampness and peat. This was soothing. It was creative work, unlike what I'd been doing for the past 20 years, raising parasites. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, paradise was finally turning into hell. They had been sitting in the lobby for 3 hours. The air conditioners were working at full power, but it didn't cool the atmosphere. Sterling sat on the floor, head in his hands. Valencia paced the space from the check-in counter to the exit, furiously clicking her heels. "We can't sit here forever," she yelled, stopping abruptly in front of her husband. "Do something! Are you a man or a rag?" "What am I supposed to do, Valencia?" Sterling looked up at her with red, inflamed eyes. "My card is in the negative. The office is being sold. Mama isn't picking up." At that moment, Rashid approached them. His patience seemed to have run out along with the workday. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice was icy, "the lobby is closing for nightly cleaning. You will have to leave the premises." "Where will we go?" shrieked Odessa. "Into the street? At night? With children? You are animals!" "I can call the police if you refuse to leave voluntarily," Rashid replied calmly, "or you can pay for the rooms." "We don't have money!" Sterling barked. "Then," Rashid pointed to the exit, "the public beach. There are benches there." This was the end of the illusion, the end of the beautiful life. They walked out into the stifling tropical night. The humidity immediately clung to them like wet cotton. Mosquitoes, usually poisoned on the hotel grounds, felt like masters here beyond the perimeter. Odessa, that beloved grandmother, suddenly stopped and threw her handbag onto the sand. "This is all your fault." She poked a finger at her daughter. "Let's take Mama. Let's save on the ticket. It's bad for the old lady to fly anyway. You saved money. Now we are bums in the Maldives." "Me?" Valencia choked with indignation. "You whined for a week yourself. Oh, I want to go to the ocean." "Oh, warm my bones. You yourself suggested taking her ticket. She's old, she won't understand." "I suggested it? You snake!" Odessa stepped toward her daughter. "You were always greedy, just like your father. I warned you. Don't anger the mother-in-law until she rewrites the will. And you? She's a sucker. She'll swallow everything." She swallowed it all right. The children, Cairo and Zuri, sat on the suitcases and cried quietly. They wanted to eat, sleep, and go home. They didn't understand why the adults were screaming, and why Grandma Dessa, who always gave them candy, now looked like the evil witch from a fairy tale. "Shut up, both of you," Sterling yelled. He raised his voice at his mother-in-law for the first time in his life. "You both drove me to this. You made it all up. I said don't touch Mama's ticket." "You said?" Valencia laughed, and that laugh was scary. "You stood there and mooed like a calf. Yes, Mommy, it'll be better this way. You're a coward, Sterling. You're just a zero without Mommy's money." She hit the mark, and he knew it. Sterling snatched his phone. He dialed my number again, but this time he didn't wait for the rings. He recorded a voice message. I listened to it 10 minutes later when I finished with the flour and washed my hands. His voice trembled, breaking into sobs. In the background, the sound of the surf and Valencia's hysterical screams were audible. Eulalia, Mama, Mommy, please forgive us. We are idiots. We understood everything. We have nowhere to sleep. The kids are hungry. Odessa, she just lost her mind. She's screaming at Valencia. Mama, I beg you, unblock the cards. At least for food, at least for return tickets. We'll come back, and I'll work it all off. I swear. Cancel the sale of the office. I'll perish without it. Mama, we are family. I sat in the kitchen, looking at the dark window. Family. A beautiful word. I pressed the call button. He answered instantly as if he was holding the phone to his ear. Mama, Mama, thank God, did you hear? Did you forgive us? Hello, Sterling. My voice sounded cheerful, even merry. Why are you whispering? I walked away so they wouldn't hear. Mama, it's hell here. Put everything back, please. Put back? I pretended to think. But son, you said yourself at the airport, the grandkids love Odessa more. Doesn't Grandma's love keep you warm? Won't she feed you? Mama, don't mock me. Odessa, she's a monster. She only thinks about herself. Really? I was sincerely surprised. And it seemed to me she was the ideal grandmother. Energetic, fun, not like me, old and sick. By the way, Sterling, I can't talk long right now. Why? Are you busy? What can you be busy with at 2 a.m.? I'm meeting with a realtor, I lied, although the meeting was scheduled for the morning, but for him, it sounded scarier than any truth. We have an urgent deal. A buyer for my office was found very quickly. He offers a good price for urgency. No, Mama, no, don't sell. This is the end. This isn't the end, Sterling. This is the beginning of your independent life. You always wanted to be independent. Here is your chance. Mama, how will we get back? We don't have return tickets. You canceled them. Well, Odessa is an inventive woman. Let her come up with something. Maybe she can sell her gold trinkets. They are heavy, surely. Mama. Good night, son. Or good morning. I got confused with the time zones. Oh yes, say hello to Valencia. Tell her I appreciated her concern for my blood pressure. It is perfect right now. I hung up. My heart beat evenly. My hands didn't tremble. I felt a strange lightness, as if I had thrown a backpack of stones off my shoulders that I had been dragging for years. They were there on the beach, devouring each other like spiders in a jar. And I was here in silence, drinking tea and planning tomorrow. And in this plan, there was none of them. I went to bed, but sleep didn't come. Not because of conscience. It was cleaner than ever. Just adrenaline, the same kind that drove me forward all the years of building a career, was bubbling in my blood again. I knew the morning show would be even more interesting. Did they stay on the beach? Of course not. Pride is pride, but mosquitoes and dampness quickly knock the arrogance out of you. They found the cheapest motel in the airport area, a dirty flop house with a fan instead of air conditioning and roaches the size of a finger. I found out about this because Sterling sent me a photo of their dinner. Styrofoam cups with hot water and instant noodles. In the background, on a sagging cot, sat Odessa with the expression of a deposed empress. In the morning, at exactly 9 a.m., my phone rang. Video call. Sterling. I accepted the call. I was sitting in my favorite armchair in a silk robe with a cup of freshly brewed coffee. Light jazz music was playing in the background. On the phone screen appeared a picture that would make any maternal heart tremble. Any, but not mine. Not today. Sterling looked terrible, unshaven with bags under his eyes and the same wrinkled shirt. Next to him, squeezing into the frame, sat Valencia. Her face was swollen from tears, but her eyes burned with an angry, determined fire. Miss Eulalia, Valencia began, not even saying hello. Her voice trembled, but she tried to keep her composure. We need to talk seriously, without emotions. I'm listening. I took a sip of coffee, demonstratively enjoying the aroma. Look at this. Valencia jerked the camera, showing the room. Peeling walls, a dirty floor, a narrow window with bars. These are inhumane conditions. The children are sleeping on one mattress with us. Cairo has a rash from bites. Do you understand what you are doing? You are not punishing us. You are punishing your grandchildren." "I am not punishing anyone, Valencia," I answered calmly. "I simply stopped paying for your banquet. You are adults. You chose to fly without me yourselves. You decided who would fly yourselves. Now you are deciding where to live yourselves. This is called responsibility." "Responsibility?" she shrieked, losing control. "This is cruelty. You are a sadist. How can you be so heartless? We are family." "Family?" I put the cup on the table. The clink of porcelain against wood sounded like a gunshot. "Valencia, let's talk about math. I love numbers. They, unlike you, never lie." I took a notepad from the table in which I made notes last night. "I calculated here," I continued, looking straight into the camera, into her dilated pupils. "Over the last 10 years, I invested $2 million in your family. Apartment, cars, vacations, clothes, kids' tuition, Sterling's business. $2 million. Sterling pulled his head into his shoulders. Valencia opened her mouth, but I didn't let her get a word in. "In the investment world, Valencia, this is called a loss-making asset. I invested, hoping for dividends. Not in money, no. In respect, in love, in care. And what did I get? We gave your ticket to Mama. 0 yield. Total default." "It's all money," Valencia interrupted. "You measure everything in money. What about feelings?" "Feelings?" I chuckled. "Okay, let's talk about feelings and your care. Sterling, do you remember that account we opened 3 years ago? The rainy day fund. You transferred $500 there every month from the money I gave you for development." Sterling blinked. "Well, yeah, it's untouchable. For the kids' college." "Untouchable, you say?" I shifted my gaze to Valencia. She suddenly went so pale she began blending with the peeling wall of the motel. "Valencia, maybe you can tell your husband where that fund is right now?" I don't understand what you're talking about," she babbled, looking away. "Don't understand?" I took another sheet of paper. "Bank statement, last transaction, 2 weeks ago, $4,000. Louis Vuitton store, Lenox Square." Silence hung in the motel room. Even through the screen, I felt the air thicken. Sterling slowly turned his head toward his wife. "Valencia." His voice was quiet, terrifying. "You took money from the kids' account?" Sterling, listen." She began backing away, bumping into the iron bed. "I just borrowed it. I needed status. You want me to look dignified yourself? I wanted to buy those suitcases so we would fly to the Maldives beautifully." "Suitcases?" Sterling jumped up. "You bought suitcases with college money? The very suitcases that are lying in this hole right now?" "It was an investment," she screamed, "in our image." "Image?" Sterling grabbed his hair. "We are eating ramen, and you have suitcases worth $5 grand? And you?" Valencia went on the counterattack, like a cornered rat. "You haven't earned a single dime yourself. You live on Mommy's handouts. You're a gigolo, Sterling." "I'm a gigolo? Why you?" I watched this with the cold curiosity of an entomologist. The masks were torn off. The loving wife turned out to be a thief. The caring mother spent the children's future on rags. And my son finally saw who he was sharing a bed with. "Stop it," I said quietly, but they fell silent. "Sterling," I addressed my son, "now you know the truth. Your wife steals from you. Your mother-in-law despises you. And I am closing up shop. I am canceling all powers of attorney. I am closing all accounts. No more infusions. Survive on your own." "Mama, wait!" Sterling rushed to the phone. His face was distorted with despair. "I'll divorce her. I'll fix everything. Just get us out of here." "Whether you divorce or not is your business," I answered. "But I won't give money. You have hands, feet, and a head. Come up with something. You are a businessman." I reached for the end call button. "And one more thing, Sterling," I added finally. "Ask Valencia where the rest of the sum is. There should have been more than the suitcases cost." Valencia froze. Her gaze darted to the corner of the room, where on a chair covered with a newspaper, Odessa sat. The same Odessa who was now suspiciously quietly chewing a sandwich, trying not to attract attention. "Mama," whispered Valencia, "you said you needed money for teeth." Odessa choked. I pressed end call. The screen went dark. I leaned back in the armchair. The puzzle came together. Valencia stole from Sterling and me, and Odessa stole from Valencia, a cycle of parasitism in nature. And I had just cut off their oxygen. Now they would start eating each other for real. I didn't even have time to finish my coffee before my phone came to life again. But this time it wasn't a call. It was a notification from Julian. "Ms. Vaughn, they went for broke. Check YouTube. Link attached." I opened the link. Valencia appeared on the screen. She was sitting against the background of the peeling motel wall, disheveled, with tear-stained eyes, clutching a frightened Zuri to herself. The video was titled, "Monster Instead of Grandma: How Mother-in-Law Left Grandkids to Die on the Street." "Help us," sobbed Valencia into the camera, wiping tears with her sleeve. "We are stuck in the Maldives. My mother-in-law, Eulalia Vaughn, a well-known financier in Atlanta, tricked us here and blocked all cards. She wants us to starve to death. Look at these children. They haven't eaten properly for 2 days. She is taking revenge on us because we brought my elderly mom along. People, I beg you, spread this video. Let everyone know what a monster she is." She moved the camera to Odessa, who immediately adopted the pose of a dying swan, clutching her heart. "I just wanted to see the ocean before I die," croaked Odessa, and she destroyed us. The video had already gathered 10,000 views. Comments poured in like hail. "Horror! Punish the witch! Poor babies!" I felt blood rush to my face. Not from fear, from fury. They decided to play dirty. They decided to use children as a shield. They thought public opinion would force me to surrender. They forgot who I am. I am not a dandelion grandmother. I am a CFO who survived the corporate wars of the 90s. I know how to take a hit. I dialed Julian. "Did you see?" I asked as soon as he picked up the phone. "Saw it. We are already preparing a response. We have all the statements, all the chat logs, the screenshot of the non-refundable ticket contract you sent them. And by the way, the footage from the airport cameras where Valencia hands over your passport. I know the head of security there. He helped." "Publish it," I said. "Everything with numbers. Let people see not emotions, but accounting." An hour later, Julian posted a response video on my former firm's official page and sent a press release to all major blogs like The Shade Room that had managed to repost Valencia's hysteria. The headline was simple: "The price of free cheese, expense report." There were no tears in the video. There were dry facts, slides with bank statements. Son's family monthly allowance, $5,000. Purchase of tickets to Maldives, $15,000. Gift. Attempted ticket theft at the airport. Video fact. Theft of money from children's account by Valencia Vaughn. Handbags, cosmetics, $4,000. And the final chord. A screenshot of my message to Sterling proposing to sell the office, to which he responded with curses. The bombshell effect was instantaneous. Commentators who an hour ago wished me death now turned their pitchforks in the other direction. "So she's a thief. Granny Odessa is faking it, living it up on grandkids' money. Ms. Vaughn, you are a saint for tolerating them so long. Kick them to the curb!" Meanwhile, in the motel in the Maldives, the final scene of this tragicomedy was playing out. Sterling, inspired by despair, tried to hack into his business security system to withdraw at least some money from the company accounts. He hoped I hadn't managed to block everything. He sat with the laptop on his knees, sweaty, with a wild look. Come on," he whispered, entering the admin password. The screen blinked red. Access denied. Account blocked by Founders Initiative. Administrative investigation underway regarding attempted unauthorized access. "No!" He punched the keyboard. Keys flew in all directions. "She closed everything! Everything!" Valencia, who was reading new comments under her video, dropped her phone. "They hate us," she whispered. "Sterling, they are writing that I am a thief. They are writing that Odessa is a scammer." Odessa, hearing her name, suddenly stopped feigning a heart attack. She got up from the bed. Her face was calm and focused. She went to her suitcase and started quickly looking for something in a hidden pocket. "Mama?" Valencia looked at her with hope. "Do you have a plan?" "I do," grumbled Odessa, pulling out a thick envelope. She opened it. Inside lay a stack of $100 bills, a thick, hefty stack, the very money Valencia had borrowed from the kids' fund and given to her mother for safekeeping, plus what Odessa had saved over years of living at my expense. "Money!" Sterling's eyes lit up. "Odessa, you saved us! How much is there? Enough for tickets for everyone?" Odessa looked at her son-in-law, then at her daughter. In her gaze, there was neither love nor pity, only the cold calculation of a survivor. "There's 3,000 here," she said. "Just enough for one economy class ticket, the nearest flight. For one." Valencia froze. "Ma, but there are 5 of us. We'll buy for the kids." "No," Odessa interrupted her. She zipped up her purse and hid the envelope in her bra. "You'll buy for the kids yourselves. You are young, you'll earn it. And I am an old woman. It's bad for me to worry. I am flying out." You are leaving us?" Valencia couldn't believe her ears. "Mama, you are abandoning the grandkids? You screamed that you loved them more than life." "Love is love, but looking out for number one is more important," Odessa cut her off. "And anyway, Valencia, this is all your fault. Shouldn't have angered the mother-in-law. You brewed the porridge, you eat it." She grabbed her suitcase and headed for the door. "Stop!" Sterling rushed at her. "Give the money! That is stolen money! That is my children's money!" Odessa deftly dodged and stuck out a hand with long, sharp nails. "Don't come near me, son-in-law. I'll scream. I'll say you beat me. The police here are strict. Want to go to a foreign prison?" Sterling recoiled. He knew she would do it. Odessa walked out of the room, slamming the door. A minute later, they heard her haggling with a taxi driver on the street. Valencia slid down the wall to the floor and howled. Not cried, howled like a beaten dog. Sterling stood in the middle of the room, looking at the closed door, and realized that the bottom, which he thought they reached yesterday, turned out to be false. The real bottom was here. They were left alone, without money, without housing, with a disgraced name, and with 2 hungry children who looked at their parents and for the first time in their lives saw them for who they really were. Weak, pathetic, and betrayed by those they considered their support. And at that time, I was looking at the laptop screen where the reputation index graph of my family collapsed into the negative zone, and I didn't care. I was already booking myself a table at a restaurant for one. 2 weeks passed. I stood at the Atlanta airport terminal again. But this time, the air seemed different to me. It didn't smell of anxiety and obligations, but of expensive perfume and freedom. I was wearing a snow-white pantsuit and a wide-brimmed hat, hiding my eyes from curious glances. Next to me stood not a brood of capricious relatives, but a neat carry-on suitcase. I waited not at the economy class check-in, but in the Delta Sky Club, where they served chilled champagne and canapes. Around me sat similar women, silver travelers, a club I found by chance, browsing the internet that very evening of reckoning. Independent, accomplished, free from family anchors. We were flying to Tuscany for wine tasting and painting lessons. My phone beeped. I took it out of my purse, a message from Sterling. "Happy birthday, Mama. Sorry it's late. We are home." I didn't open the chat fully. I knew what was next. Complaints, excuses, requests. I knew their history in detail from Julian, who monitored the situation to ensure my name would no longer be tarnished. They returned 3 days ago. They had to take a loan from some shady payday lender at insane interest rates because normal banks refused Sterling due to a ruined credit history. Thanks to me and my administrative measures, they bought the cheapest tickets with 3 layovers, flew for 2 days, slept in airports on the floor. Now they lived in a rented 2-bedroom in Stone Mountain. My house, that big, bright one where everyone had their own room, was listed for sale, and a buyer had already put down a deposit. I transferred the money from the sale to my Swiss pension fund. Valencia got a job as a receptionist at a beauty salon, not in Buckhead, but somewhere on the outskirts. She had to file off her manicure. Sterling, my successful businessman, worked as a sales associate at a firm installing windows. He had to learn to talk to people not from a position of power, but from the position of the customer is always right. It was a cruel but necessary school. Odessa? Oh, she safely flew back to Atlanta, locked herself in her apartment, and changed the locks, declaring to her daughter over the phone that she wouldn't let losers on her doorstep. She spent the money stolen from the grandkids on a spa retreat in Florida. I looked at my son's message. My finger hovered over the reply button. What could I write to him? Thank you? I'm glad. How are things? Any answer of mine would become a thread for them, a hope, a chance to latch on again. I pressed power off. The screen went dark, reflecting my face. Calm, without wrinkles of worry on the forehead. Eulalia Vaughn. An elegant lady with a glass in her hand approached me. This was Helena, the organizer of our trip. Boarding announced. Are you ready? Ready, I smiled, rising. We walked down the jet bridge, and every step resonated in me with the ring of victory. I didn't just save money by canceling that trip. I didn't just teach ungrateful children a lesson. I made the most important investment of my life. I bought myself back. I bought back my right to silence, my right to respect, my right to spend what I earned on what brings joy to me, not to those waiting for my death. The plane gained altitude. I looked out the window as Atlanta turned into a patchwork quilt stitched with threads of highways. Somewhere down there in one of the gray boxes, my son was currently eating reheated soup and thinking where to get money for the next loan payment. Perhaps he was angry at me, perhaps he hated me, but for the first time in his life, he was living his life. And maybe someday, in a year or 5, he will understand that this was my most valuable gift to him, the gift of reality. The flight attendant approached me with a tray. Champagne, ma'am? Yes, please, I nodded. I took the glass. Bubbles played in the sunlight breaking through the clouds. That trip to the Maldives was supposed to cost me $50,000 and a heap of nerves. This ticket to a new life cost me just one tough decision, and it was the best deal of my career. I took a sip. Ahead was Italy. Ahead was life, and it belonged only to me. That's the story, dear friends. Harsh, undoubtedly. Fair? Well, here opinions, I am sure, will be divided. Some will say that Eulalia Vaughn acted too cruelly, abandoning her own kin, including small grandchildren, in a foreign country without a dime. After all, children aren't guilty of their parents' greed, right? Can such a lesson be justified when the innocent take the hit? On the other hand, many of you surely applauded her decision. How long can one tolerate a consumerist attitude? How long can one be an ATM for grown, healthy adults who are not only ungrateful, but openly despise the giving hand? Eulalia didn't just close her wallet. She returned responsibility for their own lives to them. Isn't that the essence of parenting, even if belated? Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.